The restaurant was loud, filled with the clinking of glasses and the hum of happy chatter, but inside my bubble, everything felt perfect. The waiter had just poured sparkling water into our crystal glasses. Cormac, my husband of 6 years, raised his glass with a smile that used to make my knees weak. We were celebrating a massive milestone. After years of hard work and saving every penny, we had finally paid off the mortgage on our house. It was supposed to be the start of our debt-free life. "To us, Winona," Cormac said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "To freedom." "To us," I echoed, feeling a warm glow in my chest. Just as our glasses touched, his phone buzzed loudly on the white tablecloth. It was face up. Usually, he kept it in his pocket, but he had taken it out to show me a photo of a renovation idea earlier. The screen lit up with a bright notification from his banking app. I read the words before I could stop myself. "Transfer successful, $2,000 to Coralie Alimony." The world seemed to stop. The noise of the restaurant faded into a dull roar. Coralie. He had told me about her years ago. She was his crazy ex from college. He swore he hadn't spoken to her in 5 years. He swore she was ancient history. Cormac's hand darted toward the phone, but I was faster. I snatched it off the table, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Winona, give me the phone," he said, his voice dropping to a warning whisper. My name is Winona, I thought, staring at the screen, and I thought I was paying off our house. Turns out I was funding my husband's second family. Cormac let out a nervous, breathless laugh. Sweat instantly beaded on his forehead, glistening under the restaurant lights. He reached for the phone again, his fingers twitching. "Babe, don't be crazy," he stammered, wiping his hands on his napkin. "It's a clerical error. The bank has this glitch from years ago. It happens all the time. I've been meaning to go down there and fix it, but I just got busy." "A glitch?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You just sent $2,000 by accident." I didn't wait for his answer. I unlocked the phone. He hadn't changed his passcode yet. I opened the banking app and tapped on the transaction history. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a one-time error. There was a transfer last month, and the month before, and the month before that. I scrolled down, my thumbs shaking. It went back 3 years. Every single month, like clockwork, $2,000 left our account and went to Coralie. I did the math in my head, and I felt like I was going to be sick. That was $72,000. That was money I worked double shifts for. "It's a glitch," he insisted, looking around to see if other diners were watching. I ignored him and switched to his text messages. There was a thread with Coralie. I opened it. The most recent message wasn't about money. It was a photo, a positive pregnancy test. Underneath the image, the caption read, "Daddy's going to be broke soon." I couldn't breathe. I shoved the phone into my purse, grabbed my keys, and ran toward the restrooms. I locked myself in the handicap stall, my back pressed against the cold metal door. Outside, I heard Cormac's heavy footsteps. He pounded on the door, creating a scene. "Winona, open the door, let me explain." His voice shifted from begging to screaming in seconds. "You're overreacting. Give me my phone." I sat on the closed toilet lid, trying to make sense of the timeline. Cormac often worked late nights at the office. I pulled the phone out again and checked the dates of the transfers. They always happened on the days he worked late. It wasn't work. It was her. I waited until the pounding stopped. I assumed he had gone to the manager to get a key. I washed my face, fixed my hair, and walked out. I found him near the bar, looking frantic. "I need space," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I'm going for a drive." Before he could grab me, I walked out to my car. I didn't drive aimlessly. I drove straight to his office building. I still had a spare key from when I dropped off his lunch last month. The office was dark and empty. I went to his desk and pulled open the bottom drawer. There, hidden under a stack of files, was a second phone. I turned it on. The wallpaper wasn't me. It was a wedding photo. Cormac and Coralie, dressed in white, smiling on a beach. The date stamp was from last year. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't look at the bed we shared without wanting to scream. Instead, I drove to the city center and parked outside a tall glass building. I waited until morning, then walked straight into the office of Petra, the most ruthless divorce attorney in the state. I sat in her leather chair, my eyes red and puffy, and laid both phones on her desk. I need to know everything. Petra didn't waste time with sympathy. She was all business. She logged into her databases and started running a background check on Cormac. The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by the clicking of her keyboard. After 10 minutes, she stopped typing and took off her glasses. She looked at me with a mixture of pity and professional anger. "Winona, this is worse than cheating," Petra said. "Cormac didn't just send money. According to the state registry in Nevada, he legally married Coralie 18 months ago." I felt the blood drain from my face. "He's a bigamist." "Yes," Petra confirmed. "But there is a major problem. You are the primary breadwinner. You make 3 times what he makes. Under our state laws, because he is legally married to both of you in different jurisdictions, your assets, your savings, your retirement, the house, could be vulnerable to both households until we prove this is fraud." "So I could lose everything?" I asked. "Not if we play this right," Petra said, her eyes narrowing. "But you have to follow my lead." I drove home with a plan. My heart was pounding, but my face was a mask of confusion. When I walked through the door, Cormac was sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. He looked up, his eyes wide with fake worry. "Winona, thank God, I was so worried." I took a deep breath. "I thought about it, Cormac, I believe you. It must be a bank error. You wouldn't do that to us." His shoulders sagged in relief. He practically melted. "Exactly. I told you, babe, it's just a mess with the system." "We need to fix it," I said. "We can't have that money missing." "I know," he said quickly. "In fact, I need to go to the regional bank headquarters. It's a few towns over. I should go for a few days, sort this out in person, maybe go on a business trip to clear my head and fix the accounts." He was lying through his teeth. He wanted to go warn her. "That sounds like a good idea," I said, forcing a smile. "Go pack." I went into the bedroom and helped him pack his suitcase. I folded his shirts, my hands shaking with rage. As soon as he zipped his bag and walked out the door, I grabbed my phone. I dialed Riven, an old friend from college who worked in high-level cybersecurity. "Riven," I said, "I need a favor. I need you to track him." Riven sent me a link to a live map within minutes. I watched the little blue dot that represented Cormac's phone. He wasn't driving toward the regional bank headquarters. He wasn't even leaving the county. He drove 40 minutes north and stopped in a quiet, upscale suburban neighborhood. "I'm going there," I told Riven over the Bluetooth in my car. "Stay in the car, Winona," Riven warned. "Do not engage yet." I pulled up to the address Riven gave me. It was a beautiful townhouse with a manicured lawn. Ideally, I should have been sad. I should have been crying over the end of my marriage, but all I felt was a cold, hard fury. Parked in the driveway was a silver SUV. My jaw dropped. It was my car. The one Cormac had told me was in the shop for a transmission issue 3 weeks ago. He said the mechanic was waiting on parts. It wasn't in the shop. It was here. As I watched, the front door of the townhouse opened. Coralie stepped out. She looked healthy, glowing, and very pregnant. Cormac walked up to her, dropped his bag, and kissed her deeply. Then he opened the passenger door of my car, and she slid inside like she owned it. They looked like a happy, normal family. And they were doing it all with my car, my money, and my husband. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to storm over there, scream at them, and tear them apart. I wanted to smash the windows of my own car. "Winona," Riven's voice came through the speaker, sharp and urgent. "Stop. If you confront him now, he goes into defense mode. He hides the money. He destroys evidence. You need to wait." I took a shaky breath. "He's driving my car, Riven." "I know," Riven said. "But we want the house, the savings, and his freedom. Let them leave." I watched as Cormac backed out of the driveway and drove down the street with his secret wife. Once they turned the corner, I got out of my rental car. I walked up to the townhouse door. I pulled out my keychain. I had a spare key to everything Cormac owned, and I prayed he was lazy enough to use the same locks he used on his office. The key slid in. It turned. I stepped inside. The air smelled like lavender and expensive candles. I looked around and gasped. The living room was furnished with items that had gone missing from my house over the last 2 years. The espresso machine I thought was lost in the move. It was on the counter. The limited edition art print? It was on the wall. I walked down the hall and pushed open a door. It was a nursery. It was fully stocked with diapers, toys, and clothes. There was a beautiful wooden crib in the center. Hanging on the wall was a wooden nameplate. It read, Baby Cormac. I left the townhouse before they returned, shaking with adrenaline. I met Riven at a coffee shop on the other side of town. He had his laptop open and was typing furiously. "It's worse than we thought," Riven said, not looking up. "I got into the deeper financials." "Worse than $2,000 a month?" I asked, sipping black coffee to stay focused. "Way worse," Riven said. He turned the screen toward me. "Cormac opened 3 credit cards in your name. He used your social security number. He forged your digital signature." I stared at the numbers. The balances were maxed out. $150,000, I whispered. "How?" "He used it to buy everything for that townhouse," Riven explained. "The furniture, the electronics, the trips. He's been leveraging your credit score to fund his life with Coralie." "Does she know?" I asked. "Does she know he's stealing it?" Riven clicked a few keys and opened an email thread. "Read this." It was an email from Coralie to Cormac. Subject, more cash needed. Body, when is the cash cow transferring the bonus? We need to finish the nursery. Make sure she doesn't get suspicious. She called me the cash cow. She knew. She knew exactly who I was and where the money was coming from. She wasn't an innocent victim. She was an accomplice. I needed to know who else was involved. Cormac couldn't have pulled off all those fishing trips and boys' weekends without a cover story. That cover was usually Sila's, his best friend since high school. I drove to Sila's house. I knew his wife was at work. Sila's answered the door, looking surprised. "Winona, is everything okay?" he asked, trying to block the doorway. "Cut the act, Sila's," I said, pushing past him into his living room. "I know about Coralie, I know about the baby, and I know you've been lying for him." Sila's turned pale. I don't know what you're talking about." "I have the bank records," I lied, bluffing. "And I have the texts. If you don't tell me the truth right now, I'm going to drive to your wife's office and tell her about that business trip you took to Vegas last year. The one where you weren't alone." Sila's crumbled. He sat down heavily on his sofa. Okay, please don't tell my wife." "Talk," I commanded. "He's been with her for 3 years," Sila's admitted. "He loves the double life. It makes him feel important." "What's his plan?" I asked. Sila's looked down at his shoes. "He's waiting for your year-end bonus. He told me that once that money hits the joint account next week, he's going to transfer it all, file for divorce, and disappear with Coralie. He says he's done with you." I walked out of Silas's house with a cold pit in my stomach. Cormac was planning to rob me blind and leave me with the debt. I had less than a week before my bonus. A substantial sum that I had worked all year for was scheduled to deposit. I called Petra. "We need to set a trap." Petra contacted the payroll department at my company. She had them route my real bonus into a brand new, private offshore account that she had set up, one that Cormac couldn't touch. But we couldn't let him know that. Riven built a fake interface for our joint bank account. It looked exactly like the real thing. When I logged in on my phone or computer, it would show a pending deposit for the bonus amount, scheduled to clear in 24 hours. I went home and waited for Cormac to return from his business trip. When he walked in, I put on the performance of a lifetime. "Honey," I exclaimed, hugging him. "Great news, my boss emailed. The bonus is coming early. We should celebrate." Cormac's eyes lit up instantly. The greed was written all over his face. "Really? That's amazing, babe. How much?" 50,000, I said. He hugged me back, tighter than he had in years. He started kissing my neck, love-bombing me with affection. "You work so hard. You deserve this. We're going to be set." It made my skin crawl. He was hugging me, but he was counting the money in his head. The next day, the fake pending status appeared on the joint account app. Cormac saw it over my shoulder and grinned. He practically skipped out of the house, claiming he had another client meeting. I waited 5 minutes, then I initiated the next phase of the plan. I needed to test his loyalty one last time, just so I would have zero guilt about what I was about to do. I called him. I made my voice sound frantic and weak. "Cormac," I gasped into the phone. I was in an accident, my car. I'm hurt. I think I broke my leg. Please come help me." There was a pause on the line. I heard background music, soft jazz. "Babe, I can't right now," he sighed, sounding annoyed. "I'm in a huge meeting with the investors. You know how important this is. Just call an ambulance or AAA. I'll see you at home later." He hung up. I stared at the phone. He left his injured wife on the side of the road. I looked at the iPad on my lap. Riven's tracker showed exactly where he was. He wasn't in a meeting. He was at a high-end jewelry store downtown. He was using the pending credit from the bonus to buy a diamond ring. I lay on my couch, sipping tea, watching the GPS dot stay at the jewelry store. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Cormac. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hello." "Winona," he screamed. "Why is the card declining? I'm trying to make a purchase and it says frozen." I put on my weak, injured voice again. "Oh, I forgot to tell you, because of the accident, the bank flagged all our cards for suspicious activity. They froze everything to protect us." "What?" he roared. "You have to unfreeze it now." "I can't do it over the phone," I said. "They said I have to go into the branch in person with my ID. But I can't walk, Cormac. My leg is hurt. You have to come down here and help me get to the bank if you want the account unlocked." He went silent. I could hear him breathing hard. He had a choice. Come help his injured wife and get the money, or throw a tantrum. "I don't have time for this," he yelled. "Fix it. You always ruin everything." He slammed the phone down. I pressed the stop button on the recording app I had running. I had him. I had him refusing to help me, screaming about money while I was supposedly injured. The card declined because Riven had locked every single account 5 minutes ago. Cormac had $0. The next morning I went to work. I felt strong. I was ready. Around 10:00 a.m., the lobby security called. "Ma'am, your husband is here. He's agitated." "Send him up," I said. Cormac stormed out of the elevator. He looked disheveled. He clearly hadn't slept. He marched right past the receptionist and into my office. "You need to call the bank right now," he demanded, ignoring my coworkers staring at him. "The bonus isn't clearing and the credit cards are dead." My boss, Myria, stepped out of her office. Myria was a woman you did not mess with. I had shown her everything: the bigamy, the theft, the cash cow emails. Cormac worked for our sister company. I had pulled strings to get him that job. "Cormac," Myria said, her voice like ice. "Step into the conference room." "Not now, Myria," Cormac snapped. "I'm talking to my wife." "She is stealing my money," he shouted, pointing a finger at me. Myria didn't blink. She signaled to the security guards who had quietly followed him up. Then she handed him a white envelope. "You're fired, Cormac," Myria said. He froze. "What?" "Gross misconduct and ethics violations," she stated. "We don't employ thieves or bigamists. Security will escort you out. If you return, you will be arrested for trespassing." Cormac looked at me, his mouth open. I just smiled and took a sip of my coffee. Cormac was escorted out of the building, humiliated. He had no job, no access to our accounts, and no money. I knew exactly where he would go. He would go to Corley. But Corley was about to get a rude awakening. Since I had cut off the cash flow, the automatic payments for her townhouse, her utilities, and her lifestyle had all bounced. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello." "Listen to me, you psycho," a woman's voice hissed. It was Corley. "I don't know what game you're playing, but if you don't leave Cormac alone, I will sue you for harassment." I almost laughed. Harassment. He told me everything, she screamed. He told me you're his crazy ex-wife who stalks him. He told me you hacked his accounts. You're pathetic. He loves me, not you. The reveal hit me hard. Cormac hadn't just hidden me, he had rewritten reality. To her, I was the crazy ex he had toasted to at dinner. Coralie, I said calmly, I'm not his ex. I'm his current wife. And I'm the one paying for your house. If you want the truth, meet me at the Starbucks on 4th Street in 1 hour. If not, enjoy the eviction notice that's coming tomorrow. I sat at the corner table of the coffee shop. I had a thick folder in front of me. When Coralie walked in, she looked ready for a fight, but she also looked tired. She sat down without a word. I slid the folder across the table. Open it. She hesitated, then flipped it open. The first page was our marriage certificate, dated 6 years ago. The second page was the bank statement showing the transfers. The third page was a printout of the lease for her townhouse, signed by Cormac, but listed in my name. He told me he bought the townhouse with cash, she whispered, her voice losing its edge. He lied, I said. He rents it in my name, using my credit. She flipped to the next page. It was a summary of his employment history. It showed his salary. It was peanuts compared to what he spent on her. He's broke, Coralie, I said. He has been living off me for years. He isn't a rich real estate developer. He's an administrative assistant who just got fired. Coralie stared at the numbers. She didn't cry. Her expression shifted from anger to cold realization. She was a survivor, and she just realized her life raft was sinking. The baby, she touched her stomach. He swore we were secure. He stole $150,000 of debt in my name to buy your security, I said. And now the money is gone. Her face hardened. She looked up at me. He's at the house right now, packing. I left the coffee shop and made a call. Proceed with the eviction, I told the property management company. Because the lease was in my name, fraudulently, but still legally tied to me for the moment, I had the power to terminate it. I had spoken to the landlord earlier. I told him I would not be paying the arrears and that unauthorized squatters were in the property. Technically, Cormac hadn't paid rent in 2 weeks because I froze the accounts. The landlord was already angry. I drove toward the townhouse. I wanted to see this. When I arrived, the landlord was already there with a locksmith. Cormac was standing in the doorway, shouting. You can't do this. I have a pregnant wife. You have a lease obtained through identity theft, the landlord shouted back. The real tenant just terminated the agreement. Get out. Cormac saw my car pull up. He ran toward me. Winona, tell him this is a mistake. I rolled down the window just an inch. It's no mistake, Cormac. I canceled the lease. You're trespassing. He looked at me with pure hatred. You're ruining my life. No, I said. I'm just taking mine back. The chaos was just beginning. While Cormac was arguing with the landlord, a large tow truck rumbled down the street. It backed up toward the driveway where the silver SUV, my car, was parked. I had stopped paying the lease on that car 2 days ago. I called the repo company myself and gave them the GPS location. Hey, Cormac screamed, sprinting toward the tow truck. Don't touch that car. Coralie was standing on the lawn, holding a bag of clothes. She watched him run. She didn't move to help him. The tow truck driver, a burly man who had clearly done this 1,000 times, ignored Cormac and hooked the car up. Cormac grabbed the driver's arm. I said stop, that's my car. That was a bad move. The driver spun around. Cormac tried to swing a punch, a weak, desperate flail. The driver stepped back, pulled a canister from his belt, and sprayed a stream of orange pepper spray right into Cormac's face. Cormac shrieked, falling to his knees, clawing at his eyes. My eyes, I can't see. The driver calmly finished hooking up the car and drove away with my stolen vehicle. Cormac was writhing on the grass, groaning. His eyes were swollen shut. The landlord told him to get off the property or he'd call the cops. Coralie finally stepped forward. She helped him into her own small, beat-up sedan, the one he made her keep for emergencies. She drove him to the emergency room. I followed at a distance. I knew what was coming next. At the hospital, they treated his eyes. They flushed them out and gave him pain meds. Then came the administration desk. "Mr. Cormack," the nurse said, "we tried to run your insurance, but it's coming back as terminated." Cormack was on my health insurance policy. I had removed him that morning. "That's impossible," he argued, his eyes red and streaming. "Run it again." "It's canceled, sir," the nurse said. "The bill for today is $5,000. How would you like to pay?" He had no cards, no cash, no job. His phone rang. It was me. "Winona," he sobbed into the phone. "I'm at the hospital. I'm hurt. The insurance isn't working. You have to help me." "I don't have to do anything," I said coldly. "Please, they're going to send it to collections. I have nothing." "You have a wife," I said. "Ask Coralie to pay." I hung up. While Cormack was dealing with the hospital bill, Petra and I were at the police station. We sat down with a detective and laid it all out. "Identity theft," Petra listed. "Credit card fraud, bank fraud, bigamy." I handed over the evidence Riven had gathered. The fake digital signatures, the transfers, the marriage certificate from Nevada. The detective looked through the file, his eyebrows raising with every page. "This is extensive." "There's more," I said. Riven found a folder on his cloud drive. It contains photos of fake passports. The detective looked up sharply. "Fake passports?" "Yes," I said. "He has one for himself and one for Coralie. He was planning to leave the country once he drained my bonus." The mood in the room changed instantly. Cormack wasn't just a cheater anymore. He was a flight risk. "We need a warrant," the detective said, standing up. "We're going to search that townhouse." The police arrived at the townhouse just as Cormack and Coralie were returning from the hospital. Cormack was still squinting, his face red and puffy. When he saw the squad cars, he tried to run out the back gate. An officer tackled him before he made it 10 feet. Coralie stood by the car. The detective approached her. "Ma'am, you can either be a suspect in a fraud investigation or you can be a witness," the detective said. "It's up to you." Coralie didn't hesitate. She looked at Cormack, who was handcuffed on the ground. She looked at the townhouse she was being evicted from. "He has a laptop," Coralie said, her voice steady. "The password is King Cormac 1, and he buried something in the backyard last week. He told me it was a time capsule for the baby." "Show us," the detective said. I watched from the street as the police dug near the rose bushes. They pulled up a plastic cooler. Inside, they found heavy Ziploc bags. It wasn't a time capsule. It was cash. Almost $40,000 in cash that he had skimmed from our accounts over the last 3 years, hidden away for his getaway. Coralie had flipped on him completely. She saved herself. The police hauled Cormack away, but due to a technicality with bail hearings, he was released pending trial 24 hours later. He had nowhere to go. Coralie had locked him out. I had changed the locks. He went to the only place left, Silas's house. But Silas had seen the news. Riven had leaked the story to a local blog, and it was blowing up. Silas didn't want to be an accessory to a federal crime. When Cormack showed up at Silas's door, Silas didn't let him in. He called the police and told them Cormack was threatening him. The police returned to arrest him for violating his bail conditions. He had tried to contact Coralie, which was against the restraining order she filed. Riven was there. He launched a drone from his car. The video feed showed Cormack standing on Silas's porch in his boxers and a dirty t-shirt, banging on the door, crying. When the police pulled up, he fell to his knees, surrendering. Riven live-streamed it. The comments section was brutal. The video went viral within an hour. The title, "Bigamist Husband Gets What He Deserves." 2 days later, my phone rang. The caller ID said County Jail. I accepted the call. "Winona," his voice was raspy. He sounded broken. "I'm here, Cormack." "Baby, listen to me," he started, his voice pitching up into that desperate, wheedling tone I used to mistake for vulnerability. "This is all a huge misunderstanding. Coralie, she tricked me. She's the mastermind. I was trying to save us. I was undercover trying to get information on her because she was blackmailing me. He was gaslighting me. Even now, in a jail cell, he thought he could manipulate me. Blackmailing you? I asked. Yes, she threatened you. I was only protecting you, Winona. I love you. Please, you have to bail me out. We can fix this. I didn't say a word. I simply held another phone up to the speaker. I pressed play. It was the recording from Chapter 11, the call where he refused to help me when I was injured. Cormac's voice on recording. I don't have time for this. Fix it. You always ruin everything. I stopped the tape. Save that for the jury, Cormac, I said. Winona, wait. I hung up. The legal proceedings took 6 months. Petra was a shark. She petitioned the court for full restitution. Since the investigation proved that the money spent on Coralie was proceeds from fraud and identity theft, the court ordered the seizure of assets. The police seized the contents of the townhouse. They liquidated the expensive electronics, the designer furniture, and the car Coralie drove. Then came the engagement ring. The diamond ring Cormac had tried to buy in Chapter 11. He had managed to buy a different 1 month earlier using a credit card in my name. Coralie tried to fight for it. She claimed it was a gift. It was purchased with stolen funds, the judge ruled. It belongs to the victim. I stood in the courtroom as the bailiff handed me the small velvet box. I opened it. It was a beautiful ring, much nicer than the one he had given me. I handed it to Petra. Sell it, add it to the recovery fund. Between the seized cash from the backyard, the liquidated assets, and the sale of the ring, I recovered almost 70% of what he had stolen. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. The trial was the final nail in the coffin. Cormac pleaded not guilty, convinced he could charm the jury the way he had charmed me and Coralie. He took the stand. He smiled at the jury. He told a convoluted story about how he was a victim of circumstances, how he was just bad at math and loved too much. Then the prosecutor stood up. He didn't ask questions, he just played the tapes. He showed the texts. He showed the fake passports. The jury didn't smile back. They looked at him with disgust. The deliberation took less than 2 hours. We find the defendant guilty, the foreman read. Guilty on 8 counts of wire fraud. Guilty on 2 counts of identity theft. Guilty of bigamy. The judge looked at Cormac over her glasses. Mr. Cormac, your behavior was predatory, calculated, and remorseless. She sentenced him to 5 to 8 years in state prison. As they handcuffed him and led him away, he looked back at the gallery. He looked for me, but I wasn't looking at him. I was looking at my watch. I had a plane to catch. 1 year later. I stood in the international terminal of the airport, the smell of coffee and jet fuel in the air. I was wearing a sundress and a wide-brimmed hat. In my hand was a ticket to Bali. It was the trip Cormac had promised me for our honeymoon. He had always said we couldn't afford it, that we needed to be responsible. Meanwhile, he was spending thousands on another woman. Now I could afford it. I had sold the big house. I downsized to a chic condo downtown. I was debt-free. My credit score was repaired. My phone buzzed in my hand. I looked at the screen. Incoming call. Collect from inmate 8940. It was him, probably calling to beg for commissary money, or maybe just to hear my voice because no one else would talk to him. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel sad. I felt light. I pressed the red decline button. Then, I went into my settings and blocked the number. The boarding call for my flight chimed over the intercom. I picked up my bag and walked toward the gate, checking my banking app one last time. The balance was high. It was all mine. I didn't have to share a cent. I smiled as I walked down the jet bridge. I sent him $0, and it was the best transaction of my life.